as government continues to revamp the economy through the various development. No, I beg your pardon. At a roundtable held in Vienna, Austria, at the sidelines of the 8th OPEC International Seminar, discussions were centered on what needs to be done to achieve economic development through bridging the gap between poverty and prosperity, especially in developing countries of Africa. Group Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, commends the administration of President Bola Tinubu on the removal of subsidy and the unification of various segments of the foreign exchange market. He said this will bring back investment into the sector of the economy. I have with me to start this discussion today an oil and gas consultant, Mr. Ademola Adigun, to talk more on recent developments and their implications on the Nigerian economy. Thank you so much, Mr. Adigun. It's been a while. Thank you for joining us on Business Nigeria today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Let's start with developments around the sector. Since the removal of subsidy, we've been seeing meetings upon meetings with a little bit of focus on Nigeria's oil and gas industry, trying to, how will I put it, putting clarity into some of the ambiguous policies that we used to have before now. But in your thoughts, what is your overview of some of the moves being made lately around the oil and gas industry before we get into some specifics?
Generally, it's been very commendable. It's been very impressive. We've had a very good start. We've seen bold moves necessary to take the industry forward. Subsidy removal, FX reunification, and lately the Committee on Fiscal Incentives for Investments. So I think thus far, very commendable steps being taken, very applaudable steps being taken.
We also see investors wanting to look at investing in gas and deep water assets. What is your reaction to this, Mr. Adigun?
There's always been a desire by investors to invest in Nigeria. The challenges are what the government is tackling right now. So the desire is not new. We've always had IOCs in Nigeria. What we had lost in the last few years was our competitiveness. I think it makes us more competitive. And it's not one thing alone that will be done. There'll be a couple of things needed to be done. They've started work on it, but it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I think before we get to the point where we get ranked higher as a competitive nation for investments by IOCs and domestic investors, we have some work to do. But the journey has started anyway, on a good note.
The issue of regulatory overlap is also coming up and between some agencies of government. No one specifically, I'm not naming anyone, but according to the PIA and the implementation of this document, are we on track with all of these moves being made at the moment?
There are some good parts of the PIA being implemented. There's some parts needing strengthening and implementation. There's regulatory overlap, which is affecting business and the cost of doing business, but is expected in the early times as we are. There still needs to be a lot of work done on NNPC, limited as they were. There is need for more clarity between what rules the upstream and the midstream and downstream regulator does. There are suggestions that a single regulator might be best for us, giving our penchants for having overlaps and conflicts, and the need to reduce cost of business. There have been some issues around permits, payments, who has power over what and everything. So maybe the initial concept of a single regulator with many divisions might be revisited. Maybe again, it's the part of storming and forming. But the big elephant in the room is NNPC Limited, which apparently has not been as reformed as it ought to be. We still have NNPC Limited thinking itself as a regulator, making policy pronouncements on issues, being the face of many things it ought not to be anymore in the new PIA era. And until you tackle that, the PIA itself will not work. So NNPC Limited has to understand its new role, its new design, and its new commercial focus, and be less intrusive in the policy and regulatory space, as has been in the last decades up to now.
Interesting stuff. Now, let me take it up from there and ask you specifically with regards to deregulation of the downstream of the oil and gas industry. Now, subsidy has been removed. Analysts say this is just a step into total deregulation. Really, when are we going to get to that point of full deregulation of the downstream of Nigeria's oil and gas industry, considering the challenge we face at that space?
I think we're on the journey, as it were, rightly. The first step was to remove subsidy. That has been done. Our second step was to allow competition in importation of petrol. Before now, NNPC had been the sole importer of petrol for the last 4 years, based on the non-availability of foreign exchange and the fact that NNPC get foreign exchange at cheaper rates than Moman and Ipman. I've been told that with the unification, everybody's bidding for the foreign exchange. Now that's a second step of regulation. The other steps that remain include enactment of some policies guiding the process. And again, not allowing somebody to have preferential power in the market of importation, and then the strengthening of checks in terms of what's important to Nigeria, which is the key part of the liberalized market. But I think we are on the journey. I think in about another year, if this tempo is sustained, if the policies enacted are followed through, if more strengthening are done to the laws, as it were, if more reforms are done in the central bank FX regime, then we'll have full deregulation. So we're almost there, but the start is better than we've ever had.
I would also ask that the market's being opened up at the moment for marketers to run. Is it as attractive as it used to be before now? Because I expect marketers to continue to get too keen and want to bring in products. But at the last check, I'm not sure, 7 or 8 companies have been approved by government to import PMS into the country. Now, how attractive is that market for marketers at the moment, considering the challenges, effects and all?
I agree with you. Markets evolve, markets develop. Early entrants have the first key benefits. As more entrants come in, they can become more competitive. And then profitability needs you to be more innovative in your thinking and your approaches. Right now, we've been told there's some ships coming in with petrol from a lower part of the world. Now, we've been told as well that when these ships come in, the price of petrol will go down in some parts of the country. But it's a whole raft of an industry. There's the products coming to the country, there's supply chain logistics. There's a fact there's still a dependence on trucks and tanks. There's a fact that the pipelines are not working as effective as they ought to work. There's a fact that the depots are not as available in all locations as ought to be. So there's still a lot of things that need to be done by different investors to have a proper downstream that's functioning effectively and very competitive and rewarding. But as of now, I don't think that is a worry for us. I don't think anybody will bring anything they can't make money upon to Nigeria. What we need to think about is we get the right kind of quality, we're protected. We don't get the kind of times when we buy petrol and engines will knock after some time. We don't get petrol that is very cheap. Maybe we'll get back to the era of where we have super and different content and grades of petroleum as well. Maybe that era will come back again where you can decide to buy at a mobile station or go to a total station or go to an independent marketer. Maybe that would happen when we see the kind of things that come in, the kind of quality of products that come in, and then therefore everybody will play in the niche of the market where it's better to play for. But I think it's a good start. I mean, the first move was to ensure that the FX regime was same for all people. NMPC getting at 464, I buying at 738 didn't make any good use for us. So now that we are all buying from the same market, let's see what happens at the long run. But I'm sure that we won't import anything out of profitable. But I think, again, there are other supporting infrastructure necessary to have an efficient market. There's still things that need to be done. And that's an opportunity for more investments. And I mean, what Nigeria has always lacked is not money to invest. What we've lacked are investments that give you a good ROI on your money and can be guaranteed, and you can be sure there'll be policy consistency, that you won't have invested in a depot, and then tomorrow government cancels subsidy removal again and brings it back again. So those are kind of things that have scared investors off from Nigeria, that lack of policy consistency and coherency. But I think so far, so good, looking better.
While I'd also like to ask that some market watchers have said what happened in regards to diesel and kerosene might happen concerning PMS too, since the market has also been opened up now, partly deregulated. But I will follow up with the question that if our refineries become functional, aside Dangote refinery, which we're all talking about, what difference will it really make? Give us an expert perspective to this, because many don't understand what this really means. If our refineries get functional, are we going to buy PMS lesser than we have it at the moment? What does it really mean for us?
That question is a very good question. That's a question at the heart of the debate of the labor union and the government. There's an understanding by people that if you import petroleum, it makes it more expensive. Like if you find locally, it makes it cheaper. And that argument for me is very confusing. When I ask people that what determines the price of petroleum is not where you refine it. The biggest determinant of the price of petroleum is your foreign exchange, your rates, the price of the good internationally, and the price of crude. So unless we are going to subsidize crude to local refineries in Nigeria, then necessarily it won't be much cheaper than importation. We've done a report. I mean, my former organization did a report one time, looking at refining profitability in Nigeria. Now, it's higher than what is in Europe, but it doesn't necessarily then translate profitability in the market, because it's if crude prices are what determines the output prices and the efficiency of the refineries itself, and then the supply chain, which is nobody's talking about that. So if I find in Warri and I can pipe through the 5,100 kilometers of pipeline in Nigeria and get it to different parts of the country, then I might save some money on transportation. But if I have to refine in Warri and I put it on a ship, I bring it back to Lagos again and do exactly what we do with every other thing, then where is the cheapness coming from? Because remember, your crude is at foreign exchange prices, your refining capacity depends on the efficiency of the refinery itself, and the international price of products will also determine your profitability. And that's why I have no sentiments of local refinery. It's a good thing to have a refinery for energy security. It's a good thing for codependencies of refineries, other things they produce that can help other industries to run. But it's not necessarily true that local refinery will reduce prices. The margin on transportation is not as much. So, but again, these are arguments that people have had and everything. So it's something to be seen later on. But there is no economic argument backing it, because the cost of transportation, which is the key difference, is very marginal, and it can be eroded by efficiency. I use an example all the time. If you derive from yam flour, yam chips, elubo, which is the mala thing, if yam gets more expensive, it doesn't matter where the elubo is for chips. The key input factor is the price of yam. And the price of yam is an internationally determined price. Good price are determined internationally. Second thing is your exchange rate. If refineries have to buy crude because we need that money from crude sales to shore up our reserves, then where is that big advantage they have? Or they say, well, local refinery and transportation and shipping costs. It's not really a big deal. You must fix infrastructure, distribution channels to actually get that efficiency in the system. And remember again, everywhere else in the world, different grades of petroleum have different prices. It's before in Nigeria, we had that kind of system until it collapsed, and we had only one product that we all bought. But again, there's some engines that can take super, they can take light, they can take leaded. So every kind of thing might happen. But again, economically, the argument of local refining having much impact on cost is not supported.
Always interesting talking to you. Mr. Adigun, before I let you go, let's wrap up with gas development, harnessing our gas reserves. I'm one that is interested in this, proven and unproven reserves. And like I said earlier, investors are really wanting to look into this. Now, what do you think are those things that should be done to further attract more investment into that space? We are too focused on crude.
I mean, ironically, I'm working on a gas report for a client, so I've been a lot more research on gas reports. Nigeria is a gas country with crude, so we have more gas than we have crude. Historically, we've mined crude more because there's been a market for crude. In the 90s, we started marketing and developing the LNG potentials for exports. Starting from 2002, therefore, there's been an effort at domestic utilization to increase. We've tried pricing as a method. We've tried many interventions. So there are a lot of interventions going on to improve gas utilization domestically and also increase gas supply. And I heard 27 we've completed in the last 4 years. It has had FID now. So yes, we are a country that's very rich in gas. We're ninth in the world, and we have a potential to increase our gas production by an average of between 4.106 and 5.103 in the next 5 years, based on statistics. But what do we need to do? One, we're already doing. We're supporting doing business in Nigeria. Gas is an investment like every other investments. Nobody brings their money to a country they can't get out. A lot of people have brought money to the country, and because of the foreign exchange regime operated by central bank, money has trapped central bank. So again, people were wary of bringing money to a country where your money is trapped in the bank. So one, the inflation reference rate is making that happen. That's a good thing to be done. Secondly, there's an infrastructure fund being developed under the management of the authority, which has accruals. Maybe the money accruing is not enough, but it's there. But the more important thing we need to do is find investors in infrastructure. Gas has a very high dependency on infrastructure. I had infrastructure to get it out. I read the NNPC LMD or CEO, as it's now called, saying with investment of now $2 billion in pipelines for gas exports. So that's all good and well. Gas exports is very good. But we also need to improve domestic utilization. I mean, gas is getting cheaper in the country. I mean, gas, people are filling gas at less prices. And there's talks about CNG, which is part of the subsidy measures being undertaken by the Tinubu government. And there's talk about LPG as well. So all these initiatives are very good. But where are the plans to convert cars? Where are the plans to support filling stations? Where are the plans to support gas availability? Where are the safety measures necessary? Where are the pipelines which allow gas expansion and gas extraction to come in safely into people's homes or wherever they are? Those are necessary. But on the policy angle, a lot of good work has been done by government preceding the BAT government and with the initial start by the BAT government. And I think there's a lot of work being done on that. So maybe if we continue that line, maybe if we continue reforming the business environment, in your news network, you mentioned about it, a committee set up by the government to look at tax regime and other things. That's very important as well. Gas is an investment like every other investment. And if the tax regimes or the fiscals are not attractive, people not invest in it. I've heard concerns about Bonga going forward, Bonga 2 going forward based on the fiscal. So those things are things that must be addressed. And then we must maybe at this point in time give more incentives to those who want to invest in exploring gas. So yes, the last licensing regime allowed for people who don't have to do associated gas alone. You can do not associated gas on your own. So we are on the road, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take concerted efforts to improve the business climate in Nigeria. It's going to take constant policies by the government. It's going to take the regulatory space not being overbearing, because the regulatory keeps the problem as well to make it happen. So we will do well if we continue like this.
I must thank you so much for your time, oil and gas consultant, Mr. Ademola Adigun, speaking to us on recent developments around Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Do have a great weekend.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate this.